as a concept. So I managed to find a picture which actually aptly summarizes this concept. And in this particular learning outcome, we are looking at a couple of things with regards to three assessment criteria. So one, we'll understand what is digital tourism or what is the concept of digital tourism. Essentially understanding what is the word, the use of the word, digital in the context of tourism. And then we could also look at what comprises, a digital tourism landscape. If somebody is to come in and say that, what is a digital tourism landscape or an ecosystem, and that is also what we will look at. And then we'll go into details of, understanding what do we mean by, actually on ground, the usage of, digital technology or essentially technology in the field of, tourism. So in that, we'll cover three assessment criteria. One of them will be basically understanding how has this concept evolved over the years and decades. So that is basically the emergence of digital tourism concept as a whole. And I've got two great videos on this, which I would expect you to watch. They're about 17, 18-minute videos, and they are essentially going to, discuss in terms of what the transformation and how this transformation is actually happening, or is what we see happening now, more or less. It has happened in the Western world, but how do we see this happening across, other countries wherein the concept of tourism or tourism-related activities coming up? Then we'll also talk about what is called the online travel agencies. Online travel agencies essentially tend to be, the traditional travel agencies, but they, with the twist that these online travel agencies, or OTAs as we call them, basically have sprung up all over the world, and they allow us to use internet to be able to book any sort of services related to the tourism sector. So we look at what is the what are they, and essentially what is the impact they are having on the tourism industry or hospitality industry as a whole. And last but not the least, what we need to look at is analyze how consumers and businesses make use of internet in the tourism marketplace. So things like when we talk about, comparisons that we are able to do, go and virtually see the rooms that you book, or go and see and interact in a 3D demo for a location, or a virtually, go into a location and see how the facilities would be, or what you are expected to do in terms of events and activities. That particular aspect of what the internet is actually providing us is what we will look at. Things like reading the reviews, things like going and seeing the ratings of the hotel, the facilities of the hotel. I would say visually looking at the things that you want to try out in a holiday, in a business trip, in a leisure trip, but doing it online. So those are the bits that we'll cover today in Learning Outcome 2. Now, in order to discuss the Learning Outcome 2, so what I've got is a set of slides that I would take you through, and this would essentially be helping us cover, the Learning Outcome 2, which is the emergence of digital tourism concept and its associated, theories with regards to, Learning Outcome 2. Now, let's look at a couple of things before we go into more details. We will look at things which are related to the overview of the learning outcome, and then we will also discuss a couple of things related to key concepts, theories, before we go into the assessment criteria. Now, so the main focus is to understand the use of technology and how it is helping to increase supply and demand in this industry. So when we do talk about, digital or the use of technology, we are essentially focused on how technology is becoming an enabler, how it is coming into this industry as well, and how is it helping us to essentially increase the outreach of this particular sector, which is tourism as an activity, which people are now looking at doing more often because of the economic, let's say, viability, looking at resources, looking at, obviously the aspects of that travel has become shorter, It has become cheaper. The world is more connected. And obviously, when we look at connected, we look at connectivity from a point of view of, internet, and also physical connectivity from a point of view of improvement in infrastructure, whether it's road infrastructure, whether it's travel by sea or it's travel by air. And then because now the world is a bit more accessible, what it allows people to do is travel frequently, or at least travel a couple of times in some cases across the year. And that could be for business, leisure, tourism, or spiritual or adventure or whatever. There are 8, 9 different types of tourism activities, and those are becoming, a part and parcel of the norm in terms of how this industry promotes itself or places itself in front of the consumer when we look at the concept of and the use of technology. Now, one of the first videos that I want you to look at offline is basically a debate in terms of what is the future of digital tourism. And this particular video, I put the link here. It is on YouTube. This is a debate between two thought leaders. One who's a expert primarily in the field of tourism and hospitality development as a journalist, and the other person is primarily, head of the industry in driving tourism related activities, and he's based in Sweden. So this debate, for about half an hour, is an interactive debate which puts together two perspectives of what do we mean by digital tourism, and do we really see digitization or the creeping in of technology actually coming into this industry, and how does it benefit or how does it not benefit the consumer. So it's an interactive debate between two gentlemen, and this is something which I would suggest that you need to look at watching. Now, the other video that I put is a video which is like a lecture video, but it is from a person who's also a teacher like myself, and he's given a very good introduction about the tourism business activity which is happening and how the role of technology is creeping into this particular sector. And his particular debate, which is about a 20-minute introduction, basically touches on the topic of how this would evolve and why is it that people or players within the industry which are not embracing it would actually feel that they'll get left behind. So these two videos, I would suggest a bit of watching to be done, simply because visually, because we're talking about a glamour industry, we're talking about an industry wherein you need to actually visually see things to be able to believe that these are things which are actually happening, or this is something actually possible. So watching these two videos will essentially, one, give you a perspective of customer versus how the industry is wanting to move or the industry is innovating. And the second one would be to basically look at, the role of technology and how it is promoting, tourism industry across the globe. So a good watch specifically from a point of view of, looking at the two aspects. And the second video is primarily, put up in the plenary slide with the link, and why, why digital tourism in particular as a concept is something now which is being talked about more and more. And, it is important when we talk about different players involved in the tourism industry. So in terms of different players that we look at, when we talk about, in particular, the type of, when I say different players, the word for different players is the different types of, operators, industry players, which are working within this industry tend to be quite a lot. And obviously, all of them are embracing the use of technology to be able to help drive message, information, obviously try and attract that pie of the share of customers to be able to get them to experiment and, obviously travel for the purposes of various activities. So when we talk about different players, some of the players which come to my mind, if I close my eyes and visualize, when you take a holiday, things like a tour operator, a travel website, an airline, a travel agency, you look at hotels or accommodation that you normally, have. When you go to a particular location, you talk about financial services to a certain extent, because you look at using forex or exchange, your local currency into your currency into a local currency. You go to restaurants, you go to organizations which provide activities which typically happen when you go in as a tourist, things like adventure tourism, or you go and try paragliding, or you do snorkeling, or depending on wherever you've gone, you go mountaineering, things like that. So they would be the travel organizations which will predominantly be involved on the event side, giving you access to activities that you normally do. So if people travel to Dubai, they go and have a desert safari, or you go to Dubai and you watch the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Those are all sorts of different activities that you would participate in and use transport, taxis, buses, trams, trains, and they would all be a part and parcel when I say players within this industry. And all of them are embracing the use of technology simply because it is easier for them to use it and then disseminate information to customers using technology. Now, one slide which basically summarizes the learning outcome that we want to cover today is the emergence of digital tourism concept. So this slide, or this image essentially on the slide actually summarizes this beautifully. So when we look at, and when you watch that particular video, the debate, interactive debate, you would see, initially the traditional operators were that when you used to go to a city center, you had a bit of a hut. And in that hut, you had, some brochures, posters, flyers giving you directions and, major locations that you could visit. But over the years, what has happened is that hut has been transformed into an office. An office has been transformed into a lavish or a much more, bigger office, or which is a travel agency. And over the years, what that has happened is the travel agencies have become glamorous and they have televisions, interactive screens, and things like that. But essentially, they are doing the same bit of service or providing the same bit of service that they were providing, 30 years back, 40 years back, when customers used to come in and you used to be just a place where you could stand, discuss, ask the tour guide. But over the years, the tour guide has transformed into getting into an office, a glamorous office, and providing the same set of features, but maybe with fancy, paper or use of technology like tablets. And, they could say, okay, here's a video of the destination that you're visiting, and they would show you an interactive demo on a tablet, and essentially help you experience what you're going to be, spending money on. So when we look at the role the technology has played and how it has started, you would see this on this slide that we start with traditional travel operators. Over a point in time when e-commerce and businesses started to become internet e-commerce, and digitization started to happen, which means the proliferation of internet. Essentially, you would see that in the early 2000s, this became some part of the services which operators used to provide was augmented and transformed to going online or on the websites. Then in the I would say in the 210s onwards, and when we look at the last decade, a decade before this as well, you would generally see e-commerce side of things coming in because the internet proliferation happened, but it also became affordable. That means a lot of people were able to use the internet, and the growth in the population in terms of the number of people, who can access internet, in terms of internet across the globe. Today has grown tremendously. So today, out of the population of 8.6 or 8.7 billion, 5.35 billion people have access to the internet. Now, if I go back in the decade 2000s, early 2000s, that access was 1.8, 1.9 billion. But when I look at 2010 onwards, that access became up to 3 billion. So what we see with the coming in of the connectivity, it becoming cheaper, and over a point in time, a lot of more people getting connected because there are now various ways through which you can get connected rather than just dial-up modems, which are in the 90s. Then it went to, lease lines. Then from lease lines, it went to fiber optic. And today, because of the speed which fiber optic is able to support, and obviously laying down of the underwater sea marine cables, has transformed the usage of internet. Elon Musk's initiative in terms of providing internet through the satellite, which is Starlink, also is increasing the penetration of the connectivity in terms of people having access to internet even in rural areas, in underdeveloped countries. So e-commerce has become quite important. That means internet allows various players within this ecosystem, which is tour operators, agencies, airlines, hotels, and others, to get connected. And then when they get connected on the internet, they are also able to share information and data, and that allows the integrated distribution systems to propagate, which means I can see the capacity of a particular hotel, or what are the number of rooms available, or which airline I want to fly, how many seats are available, what are the pricing. I can physically, and I can start making a lot of inquiries online without having to physically call somebody up on the phone or meet somebody to be able to find this. So from e-business, which is businesses having websites, to businesses being able to transact online, became the e-commerce. And now today we see what is the emergence of what is called smart tourism. So when we do talk about smart tourism, what we mean essentially by that is, if I give you, say, an example of smart tourism, a smart tourism is that when you look at various things related to technology helping you to personalize your experience. So if I look at a small town, say for example in Sweden, which is probably mentioned in the debate, you would see in the last 4 years, or 5 years, this particular town has transformed itself into a smart city. That means the let's look at an example wherein if you go to a promenade next to the sea, there is lighting on the promenade, but as you begin to walk, the lights switch on, and when you are past a certain distance, the lights switch off. So this is an example of where energy conservation with conservation in terms of resources is stepping into smart tourism. Smart tourism can also be seen sometimes in your own room. Like I mentioned in the last lecture, that nowadays with the RFID cards, what you do is you get an access to your room. And when you get access to your room, what you do is when you go into your room, you put that card into the slot and everything lights up. But the moment you leave the room and you take that card out, because that is the card which allows you access to get in and out of the room, everything switches off. So that is use of technology to save electricity and conserve electricity wherever possible, because it also utilizes a lot of resources in terms of contribution towards global house warming gases, and obviously bills related to carbon emissions and things like that. That is where you would see smart tourism coming in. So reuse of these RFID cards. Initially, if I look at 10 years back, the RFID cards which were issued to you when you booked a hotel and checked in, they became actually useless, because what used to happen was you go back to the reception and they would say, okay, yes, you can bin them, or obviously we can't reuse them. Today, because of technology, those same cards can be reused, reprogrammed, and that is again the concept wherein you are able to reuse some of the things to save resources. And that is one such example of, I would say, smart tourism. But the concept of smart tourism encompasses the usages of technology, the end experience, the end user experience which technology provides to improve that experience for you as a tourist, and improve the interactions that you have, would be an example of smart tourism. Example of this is 5G today. So if I look at connectivity with 3G, 4G, and the innovation which is happening in technology, you would see that with 5G, you are able to simultaneously download something, browse a video, or watch streaming video. Now, this is allowing you to go to sites, and obviously with the use of those devices which you can plug in, it gives you a local, let's say, translation into a local language, or a language that you understand, and you're passing through in an open bus. And obviously, depending on what language you speak or you understand, when it passes beyond a certain historical let's say places or monuments, you're able to hear that translation in your own language to be able to understand what you're actually visiting, what you're actually seeing. And that is the use of smart technology in tourism. So what we see is this particular image showing in a beautiful way how the concept of, or emergence of, digital tourism has happened, wherein when we look at traditional operators, they have transformed by using getting into an era wherein everything became important to have websites, or a route through which you could also disseminate information, and that was online. Then the interactivity in terms of being able to buy, purchase, and put out more information in an interactive, engaging manner, leading to e-commerce, and then finally the use of smart tourism or emergence of the concept of smart tourism. And then when we do talk about this in detail, what we are looking at is the main purpose of why we say that digitization or digital technology or technology in general is now a part and parcel of this particular industry is because it allows the user to get a personalized experience and a more, I would say, interactive and engaging experience when you do talk about any sort of an activity related to tourism. And this could be how you stay in a hotel, how you get information, how you book airlines. So if I look at airlines going back, obviously that is in emergence of technology in airlines. But if I go back 40 years, obviously people were able to fly, but there was no in-flight entertainment. But in the early 90s, you began to see in-flight entertainment coming in. So in-flight entertainment meant that you could have limited set of movies. But today, if you go and you fly, you would probably see a whole catalog of everything available in the in-flight entertainment. You'll be able to access weather, local news, watch hundreds of movies, watch series, see an interactive map of how the plane is traveling or where across is the positioning of the plane using GPS. And in some flights, you would also see there are outbound cameras which allow you to see the external environment, with the use of those cameras, and all that is happening on your interactive screen. So we see a lot of this now coming in because this is providing what is called an improved experience to its customers when we do talk about the use of technology in this particular sector. Now, booking a hotel does not need to be stress, or all you can do is go onto a particular website like bookings.com or Expedia in the UK, and what you can do is compare prices of two hotels and compare rooms and see which is, say for example, use a website like Trivago and see how you can get a booking done in a matter of seconds, and that too by comparing prices, comparing rooms, and obviously looking at value for money, which is how much you want to spend and where do you want to spend and what kind of facilities you want to spend. So there are loads of options available because of the use of technology. In earlier days, again, I'll quote an example. If I go back 20 years and I look at my first vacation, we had only two types of rooms, standard rooms and deluxe rooms. But today, obviously, and they were presidential or suites as well. But nowadays, when you book a room or you book a hotel, you look at the ratings, you look at Wi-Fi, you look at free parking, you look at onboarding, or sometimes we look at breakfast included, the American style of hotels, wherein you have to pay for all your food. You have half board, full boarding. You have other services like the concierge or pick up and drop from the airport. You have transport available. You have the access to entertainment within your room, and obviously additional activities that you would want to plan, and that would give you the pricing of the rooms that you want to book. So when we do talk about the emergence of digital tourism, these are the bits that we are focused on in terms of ensuring that why do we say technology has creeped in, and that the coming in of technology into this particular sector then allows we to get a better experience. So internet, increase in the internet in terms of its usability and availability. We look at mobile technology, which allows us to now use media and different forms of media, simultaneously. You have social media, which allows you to get hold of reviews, experiences, people which have stayed in a location. You want to look at, reviews, photographs, videos, and obviously here the concept of what is called social influencers have come in, which primarily, go into a particular destination and, record a video by giving you an inside out even before you travel to that particular destination. Data, obviously, because data and data analytics is quite important, because when we look at you having to stay and obviously everything captured electronically. This allows companies, agencies and other type of businesses within this sector to utilize past data and then predict future trends, do a bit of predictive analysis, and also look at understanding your preferences that you would want or you would want to look at. And then obviously use of emerging technology like virtual reality, spatial computing, I mentioned, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things which are coming in, which is obviously driving more strongly forward the integration of technology within this sector. Now, the other bit that we want to understand very briefly is to understand what are the theoretical frameworks, if any, which could be associated with digital tourism. Now, this particular theory of unified theory of acceptance and use of technology, which is UTAUT, is basically an acceptance. It's a model which has been put forward by Venkatesh and team. And this model over the years has now become quite widely acceptable that yes, technology and the use of technology is helping us to provide better services to our customers. So this allows us to bifurcate and easily understand what are the various demands, what are the various requirements of the customers, and then using technology, we can fulfill those demands and requirements of the customer much more effectively. So this theory looks at the optimal usage and adaptation of adoption of technology within a particular sector within tourism. So when I look at airlines industry, the amount of innovation which is happening in airline industry, specifically in terms of let's say incorporation of technology into the aircrafts is they are looking at it from a point of view of demand and what the customers are willing to pay. Now, if I look at 5 years back, there was no internet availability within the airlines. So nowadays, if you look at most airlines are investing on the internet because the price at which they can afford and provide the internet, because using Starlink or some of the other providers, if you travel in a flight which is a long haul flight, the use of internet for data video streaming is roughly about say £7 or 699 euros, depending on the duration and the length of your flight. It starts from 399, just shy of €4, and it can go up to about €7 or €8, depending on what kind of data you would download. And that would be available for the whole duration of the flight, whether it's a 3-hour flight, 6-hour flight, 8-hour flight, 10-hour flight, or even longer. So I've experienced it personally myself, and this is a significant upgrade, which means that this theory is being put to test. That over the years, what the airline industries have started to experiment is that is there a demand? Do people want to work on flights, whether it's short haul flights or long haul flights? And is there a demand for the internet connectivity within aircraft? So over the years, experimentation, piloting has been done. And as the understanding in terms of requirements of the customer has been built basis data, what airlines industries have started to do is, at least on the long haul flights, they've started to introduce connectivity, and that connectivity is paid for at a price which customers are willing to pay. Now, the second model that we look at is technology acceptance model, TAM. Now, this model was initially proposed by Davis and his team, and what they looked at was, if we there is a saying in English which says, if it broken, let's not fix it. So if things are working well and things are working okay, and there is that particular saying says that we don't need to do anything extra because things are working well and it meets the requirements. But when we look at the TAM model, what essentially, influencers and the market tends to do is that they start to focus on understanding what is the need of and preference of users, try and see what trends would be possible, or what would be the future requirements of the customers at any given point in time. And are there any sort of influencers or for early adopters who are looking at adopting this technology, wherein that would be seen as a place where demand could get created. So here, in order to understand that technology can come and help solve problems, what most industry let's say experts in this industry do is that they start to look at where are the gap areas, and in these gap areas or in these areas which need improvement, can technology come in and obviously help in making that experience better. So in some cases, when you look at technology acceptance model, Initially, when the star rating of the hotels started, you had 1 star, 2 star, 3 star. Today, you have 7 star hotels. But in order to differentiate what was the difference between 1 star and 5 star rating, there were tangible parameters which had to be put in place. And that is where sometimes you would see technology was also used to create that or augment that rating. So, for example, in hotel rooms today, if you go into a 5 star hotel, one of the must requirements as per the standard is that it needs to have an LCD or a flat panel television. Now, that would contribute towards an interactivity through that in terms of cataloging and services which could be entertainment services provided within the room. If that is a feature which is now available in that hotel, it will basically improve the rating of that hotel. You have a swimming pool, you have a 24-hour coffee shop, you have a 24/7 concierge, you have a pickup and drop service, you have certain facilities like a 24/7 restaurant which operates throughout the duration of the round the clock essentially in the hotel. Then these are all influences to technology. Now, where does the technology acceptance model come in? Now, what hotels have tried to do is they've tried to experiment that can we install vending machines in places where it can do away with the requirement of, say, serving things like a hot coffee or a hot cup of tea or something which is a hot beverage or a cold drink. Now, in such cases, that has been tested over a point in time, and integration of such let's say devices or machines has been done in order to make that available to customers. Now you look at another theory, which is diffusion of innovation theory. Now this theory basically looks at how new ideas and technologies spread within the society and industry. So there's a lot of research which was done by Roger and the team, and what they looked at was that are there early innovators, early adopters, and are there people who are basically going to be looking at taking up something in this particular field. So when we look at virtual reality and the use of virtual reality coming into the tourism sector, you see this is still in the early adoption phases. Excuse me. Now the reason I say this is a lot of destinations wherein you're trying to sell a service which is going to be very expensive or which is going to be utilized by within the economic reach of only a few set of people, then in such cases you would need to create an experience which people can actually see virtually and then believe that this is something that they want to spend money on. Now if I talk about space tourism, people who have gone into space, a couple of people in 2 digits, maybe 10 or 12 people who have gone into space. The cost of space tourism is quite expensive. It's in excess of $250,000, and you only go there for about a couple of minutes right now, which some companies are now promoting. So Virgin Atlantic, for example, and Amazon founders Jeff Bezos' company, which has taken him into space for a couple of minutes, the cost is quite high. Now, what they're looking at doing is they're trying to see, with the help of this theory, whether there are people who would be interested in this activity and are they going to be adopters. So that is driving the demand for space tourism in particular. Or when you look at adventure tourism, people jumping off cliffs, bungee jumping, or people jumping off planes for or balloons, for example, to look at that kind of a thrill experience, then in such cases, they would need professional training. Obviously, you would need to meet certain criteria, and in some cases, costs and factors in terms of health and safety would also come into being. And those are the areas wherein theory of diffusion innovation is actually coming in. The last two that we just want to briefly mention on is one is social exchange theory. Now, this looks at understanding the social behavior of the tourist. That means, what is it that the tourist expects? What is it that when you get into the tourist, mentality, what is it that your expectation set is? How do you behave in a particular location? What kind of activities you want to go in and do? And, what are the influences? What are the things that will influence you and your behavior when you look at booking such tourism activities? So in such cases, it is important for hotels and tour operators and agencies and anybody who's involved in this sector to understand your past behavior, your past interactions, your preferences. And in general, when we talk about social exchange theory, it is basically looking at understanding your sociological and physiological aspects, which are going to weigh on how much you spend and what are the costs or benefits that you expect when you're spending X amount of money on a holiday. So if you're looking at going on a vacation, which is a leisure vacation or a beach holiday, your criteria or decision making factors would be related to getting space on the beach, getting clear beaches and crystal waters, or for example, sandy beaches. You don't want overcrowding on the beach. You want a hotel which is within walking distance of the beach, or the hotel has a private beach. And in some cases, some of the beach activities or leisure activities are also available. Things like, a motor speeding boat, or snorkeling, or diving and things like that. Now, that would basically be the reasons why the hotels, or the tour operators in that location would start promoting that destination, because they are positioning it across basis some of the requirements of their customers and the pre-preferences of their customers. So it is important for them to understand that what is the idea that people seek, and what rewards they are willing to pay, and in some places how much money they are expected to spend or can spend, and then they calculate their costs versus benefits before engaging in that particular activity or booking that holiday. So that is where the social exchange theory comes in. Now, when we look at service dominant logic model here, this particular model focuses primarily on understanding that how much is the customer willing to pay. And say, for example, in some cases, this framework or model is actually based on that what are the products or services which would be valuable to customers when you go in for a particular holiday. That means if I want to book a good hotel, I want a five-star hotel. Don't get me wrong. Say, for example, my understanding is I want a five-star hotel, but in that five-star hotel, I want to be only paying for certain amount of services, because certain amount of things or services which they provide might not be of use to me, or I might not be intending on using it. So in such cases, you get into that approach of understanding, how do I look at value in this particular service, versus if I don't spend here, I could have actually spent something of some part of this money on a different activity or a different type of feature which would have been more valuable to me. So when you start looking at that logic of cost benefit, or value that you would want to pay for that particular service, then you get into this particular approach of what is called the service centered dominant logic approach, or ST logic approach as we call it in short. And this focuses on so when you look at this approach, the players within this industry focus on providing services and or services which could be described as services that you can opt for when you are booking the hotel. And in such cases, what they do is they basically provide them as additional services that you will need to pay for. So your room will be like a superior room. You'll have features in the room which would basically be meeting your criteria. But beyond that, say, for example, if you wanted room service, or for example, in the room you wanted, let's put it this way, you wanted, say, for example, a bigger television, or you wanted a study desk, or you wanted, say, for example, a room which is basically a combination of having a seating and a bedroom, then in such cases, what will happen is the hotel will start you off with the basic facilities which they think that you would need in the room, but they would also start serving up options on websites or on discussions that you do with them. Then it'll say, okay, for additional £35, you could get these additional services, and you could get a bigger room and a room with a view, or say, for example, a balcony, things like that when you're going. So in such cases, service dominant logic approach tends to slip in, and this can allow operators, organizations, or people who are providing these services to create benefits for which the, let's say, the person or the tourist, or in this case the consumer, is actually willing to pay. And that would mean that they would start charging some additional cost, or they'll be able to drive some additional revenue. Now, this particular logic as an approach is used in marketing quite often, and you get to see when you start looking at even buying stuff, when you go out for to the supermarket, and you will see, okay, if I buy a pack of beans, baked beans, for example, the can is the packed can is say it's 75p, but if I get two or if I get a pack of four, that's £2. So sometimes you start thinking that although I need only one, but the price is so attractive that I'm saving nearly a pound on getting four cans. So what tends to happen is you end up buying the four pack rather than one in the pretext that you're saving a bit of cost and I might use it in the future. So this kind of an approach that you start to look at when marketing treats customers as value creators is the service dominant logic approach. And that is what is very, very useful specifically in the tourism industry because here there are loads of services that the providers can provide to consumers. But at some stage, what they need to be able to look at is how much of value is the customer looking to pay additional as compared to, what do we need to provide as standards so that we are still able to secure the business. Now, these major frameworks are useful when we look at the decision-making matrix of how to include technology within tourism and tourism-related activities. So these are these are roughly say five theories that decision makers look at when they start to understand and look at making decisions to integrate technology into say for example any sort of activity which is related to tourism, whether it's a tour operator, airline industry, hotel, events management company, or in general, people who are providing ancillary services within this sector. But for them, their bread and butter actually comes from this particular industry itself. Is that okay? Any questions on this?
No, it's fine. It's clear.
Now, let's look at briefly some of the assessment criteria after the coverage of the overarching aim of the learning outcome. So the first one talks about review of the concept of digital tourism. So here, what you'll have to do is recap in terms of how the tourism landscape is essentially changing. So when we do talk about, the tourism landscape and in general talk about or maybe use a term like digital tourism, then we are looking at what are the various tools and embodiments which can help organize this sector a bit more. Now, this organization can be something which we look at as a set of systems. And these set of systems essentially would be systems that would help us in transforming the experience which the customers have or get when they look at tourism as an activity. So the slide which I'd initially shown can also be put up here because it basically summarizes nicely what the emergence of digital tourism is. So I'll put this here as well just very briefly, and that would give us a snapshot of where we are going what we need to discuss and what we need to cover when we look at this particular assessment criteria. So one, we talk about the early internet era, which is in the 1990s, the advent of internet and internet coming into most of the businesses and business related activities, the rise of websites and obviously e-commerce as a platform. And then over a point in time we can also say that with the coming in of the internet and the technology and advancements in mobile technology, it led to the creation of social media, and social media tried to basically has made a significant difference because when we do look at booking destinations or holidays today, we definitely look at reviews and some of the reviews which have been left by previous customers who have stayed in that location, and sometimes preference to book an airline or book a hotel is mostly dominated by what we are reading from experience of previous customers, and that would be something that you would cover in this particular assessment criteria. So basically, you have to draw a picture in terms of how the activities and the activities of this sector have transformed with the integration of technology, whether it's the use of internet, whether it's the use of mobiles, whether it's the use of social media, and in terms of after 2010, you look at data analytics because a lot of data is being created, and then presently the technologies like artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, allowing the services and the experience which the customer has improving because of the use of technology within this sector. Now, if I were to look at if I were to go outside and look at without having to look at, what are the usages that I get. Now, if I look at, say, for example, checking into an airline today, if I'm going to a destination, for example, if I'm going to Spain, I book my tickets online. I don't need to go to a tour operator. I can do searches of various websites and go on to a particular website to do comparison to see which website or which airline is going to provide me the cheapest possible ticket. What is the route that will be the fastest possible route that I can take? Now, these websites essentially would be, websites which allow us to compare flights, durations, ticket prices, days on which I can fly, and on what days the flights are cheaper as compared to, if I look at money wise and distance wise, what is the best possible package that I can get when I'm going to that particular location. Then I can add hotels. If I'm going to a location, obviously I'm not just traveling by air, but I'm also looking at taking a flight. So in such cases, after I reach that destination, I would need to stay. So I look at if there is a package available. All that can be done online. Now, once I booked the airline and the hotel, the next thing that I want to do is check in. So check-in can happen online today, and that online checking allows me to also print out boarding passes. If I need to print out, I'm old school, but if not, then you can get those electronic boarding passes added to your wallet on your phone, and that would mean that your check-in and arrival at the airport, and from arrival at the airport to check-in through passing through security and boarding the flight would become slightly easier because you would spend less time. You would just go in, you've checked in already, you would only drop your baggage, confirm everything, go through security, and then go into the place where you are actually waiting to board your flight. Now, in certain cases, this would be not possible if I go back 10 years or 15 years. You had to have human intervention. You had to deal with a number of people to be able to get these things done. But with the coming in of technology, this process becomes slightly easier. It basically becomes, it helps me save a bit of time. It helps me save a bit of interaction that I need to do, or do a bit of explaining to different people when I'm checking in. What seat do you want? Or no, I booked this seat. And you want to pay a bit of premium. You can pay a bit of premium and get a seat with an extra leg room space on the flight if you check in 24 hours early, and all that is being managed electronically without having to go back to anybody to speak to, or have any intervention from any other person manually. So these are usages of technology that you need to talk about specifically when we talk about the concept of technology coming into tourism. Now, when I do talk about the concept of tourism, what I also want to look at, what is the role technology is expected to play, and what are the benefits the technology is bringing to this sector. So in such cases, what we will look at is, as I've described to you, one of the things that you see is that the technology is actually enhancing customer experience. How is it enhancing customer experience? If I go to a particular website, one such use that we get to see even on our website that would be put forward is the use of chatbots. So we've trained that with about 1 million lines of code on our website. It has lots of information that is already read. So if customers want to ask a question, students want to ask a question, where do I submit assignments, who are my tutors for tourism, things like that, it will be able to give you intelligent answers at the back of it. And that means it is time saving. It is basically providing the information, at a click of a button, or a click of, a few buttons, and that is providing enhanced customer experience, which you would probably not have on the websites earlier because they were like one-way channels wherein you could only put out information but not interact and engage with them. Then we look at the most important point, which is operational efficiency. Now, basically, systems and connected systems and technology has allowed services and information and data to be connected, and that means that it allows people who are in the management, middle management, or in some cases customers who would have access to that because they're paying for those services. It will allow them to get hold of those services and that information in a much more effective and faster manner. Now, this is something which is useful, and I'll give you a simple example. We see this in our homes today because if you see the usage of smart devices, you have thermostats that are connected to your phone. You have washing machines and fridges which you can actually, connect via an app, and you are able to see what is in the fridge, or what you can change the temperature. If you're going on a holiday, you're able to control the operations of that using your application, the app on your phone, and using the Wi-Fi connectivity. Now, what is that helping us to do as a customer, end customer? It is helping us to interact and use that device sometimes without being in the same room. Now, if you put that in perspective within the hotels, the keyless entry systems, the automatic energy management that you normally have with the RFID cards, or when you take out the card and obviously take go away, it puts everything through a sleep mode. Access and controls to things like your safe, or if you're putting your valuables across, those are bits which are bringing operational efficiency without having a human to interact and interface within that. So those are the bits that we need to look at explaining in this particular, criteria, which is showing the emergence of technology coming in and how it is helping to transform the end user experience, specifically from a point of view of, customers. And the important point of sustainability is also there, because at some point in time, all hotels are looking at finite resources, spending a finite amount of money. And obviously, when we look at that as an option, it is important that any sort of environmental impact which the tour operators, hotel, airline industry can help reduce to preserve the environment is done. And in such cases, also, you would see the technology comes to a rescue. And that is why the emergence of technology is becoming quite important as far as this sector is concerned. Is that okay? Any questions on this?
No, it's clear.
Then we go to the second assessment criteria, wherein we are looking at understanding what is the concept of, online travel agencies. Now, when we look at the concept of online travel agencies, what we are looking at is the basic idea wherein a tour operator is actually now present on the website, and that allows travelers to book flights, hotels, any other sort of travel related services, and these can be done online using websites. So when we do talk about OTAs in particular, what we are looking at these OTAs using different algorithms and obviously technology, which is primarily based on some sort of logic in the background, which is being programmed to understand the requirements of customers and then serve the information related to the customers in the required format. So when we do talk about some of the online travel agencies, big names that come to your mind, if I write it down here, is in the UK, say, for example, you have bookings.com, you have Expedia, dot Expedia, not right.com. You have Travago, which is a website which has come up in the last couple of, I would say 2 or 3 years, which basically allows you to book hotels and save a lot of money by booking them online rather than going to the hotel sites. You have sites like MakeMyTrip.com, which became quite useful and important, lastminute.com. These are sites which provide you bargains or deals, and it allows you to compare various services that you're trying to get hold of by going to one site rather than visiting so many different websites. Now, they are basically all classed as what are called online travel agencies. The role of the online travel agency is basically to allow you as a consumer to be able to search, to book travel, to book products and services, whether it's air tickets, airlines, hotels, lodging, car, rental, whatever you put it, cruises also, when we talk about, travel and travel by sea. And they allow you to do so. The keyword is without using any intermediaries. And that would be the concept of what we call online travel agencies. So that means OTAs are slowly and gradually, they have replaced all the intermediaries which are involved in providing services to customers between the travel agencies, or I would say between you and the supplier side of things. So if I look at, I don't know in terms of, if I put it this way, if I look at an example, I don't know when was the last time I ever visited a travel agency or a tourist or tour operator to book a airline ticket. I think I don't recall ever going to any tour operator, at least in my lifetime. My parents would have done so, but I haven't ever been to a tour operator or at least a shop which basically helps me in booking airline tickets. So from my point of view, I've always interacted and always looked at websites to be able to try and book any sort of a service that I want when I look at traveling. So these online travel agencies or businesses which are termed as businesses which are able to provide you access to any sort of a service that you need to book, buy, or get without having to use any intermediaries would be the role of what are called OTAs. Now, what has OTAs over the years with the use of technology come in? So there was no internet. When I look at the 90s, internet was available, but it was very expensive. It was dial-up modem based internet. The speeds were not great. But when I look at the 2000s and the dot-com bubble, in general, you had lots of websites, but e-commerce had not started. But when I start looking at beyond 2005, you had e-commerce coming in into the internet and websites in a big way, and the speed of internet started to increase because we had 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G coming in from a telecom operator's point of view, but also fiber optic lease lines and fast speed internet coming into homes and becoming affordable. So in such cases, what the businesses, what we see as a bit of an emergence happening was that these websites that I talk about, some of them have come up in the last 4, 5, 6 years. And some of them, if I look at, have been going for 10 to 15 years, but nothing beyond that. And these online travel agencies or tour operators, which are the digital version of the tour operators of the earlier 90s, 80s, 90s, and other places, have started to provide us services without having to use anybody in the middle and pay them any sort of a fees. Now, if I recall, booking a train ticket, through the operator meant that they would charge you some admin fees. Okay, the ticket price was say $200. They would charge you $210 or $205 because they were charging their cut in the middle. Or in some cases, this cost was being subsidized by the operator because they were helping to sell those services. So what the OTAs have done is what we need to cover in this particular task. So understand OTAs have increased accessibility and convenience. They've increased the market reach. So now if you're planning to book a hotel or a service in a different continent, you don't need to speak to a tour operator or any intermediary. You'll go onto the website, you'll primarily look at the details and then make a decision whether you want to go ahead or not go ahead. Now, there is also a lot of competition amongst these OTAs, which is leading to what is called, further optimization of websites and algorithms which they're writing. So there is a competition which is happening, which primarily is also seeing that when you do search for these OTAs, there are search algorithms being written, ranking listings which are coming up, ratings which are coming up, which are based on the experiences, the purchases that you do, and the actual literal experiences that you've had in that location. And they are also influencing the ranking of these online travel agencies. And that is also being done using the use of technology. So in internet marketing, we talk about the concept of search engine optimization, and that is also happening in the case of online travel agencies because they are putting the reviews for upfront. They are putting the ratings given by the customers upfront. They are putting the best possible quotes which customers are quoting them on in terms of their experience upfront, and that is allowing the search algorithms to even when you do a search, you want to say I want to look at a booking website, and what will happen is you'll have these sponsored searches which will start to come up, which are based on ratings, reviews by customers, and the number of customers which have bought the services from that site, ranking the OTA higher than some of the other OTAs which are their competitors. And you would know that most of these agencies are also, which are online now, but they are also having a revenue model. So when I look at comparethemarket.com or look at booking.com or Trivago or lastminute.com, they are also making money because they are also wanting the businesses to be viable. So in such cases, going and finding a travel agency online, which is offering you the best possible price or the cheapest possible price for the services that you're looking at, means that there could be squeezing in of commissions which these agencies online are getting from the operators. And in such cases, you would look at the algorithms helping the OTAs to get across to more customers, primarily because the more volume they get, they are able to offer cheaper prices to consumers for the same services. So when we look at the concept of evaluation of online travel agencies and meta search engines, we need to be able to address that what is it that they are doing. So one of the search engines that I've also used in the past is Skyscanner and Kayak. Now these are airline search agencies which basically are, I would say, which are OTAs, but they are predominantly focused on providing cheaper airline tickets. So you could create an alert on these engines, and you would say, okay, I'm looking at flying from here to Finland, and my destination in terms of my dates for travel are between 15th September to 15th October. I'm flexible, and you create an alert, and what it'll do is send you an alert every day when the ticket prices are going up or going down, and those are going to be helping you to decide on what days you are going to travel and probably get the best possible price. So in such cases, these kind of additional features that you see, which are algorithms being written and features which are being added to these booking sites or OTAs in particular, are helping customers to find cheaper prices, or they are helping to build what is called price transparency, and thereby increasing competition amongst these operators, thereby allowing consumers to get the benefit of reduced pricing or more choice. And that is the role what these agencies or OTAs are essentially doing now in terms of replacing the traditional tour operators. And that is what you need to cover, specifically in this task. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now, at the end, obviously, I've done a bit of a summary table which covers all these points in the slide. So obviously, these are the aspects of why OTAs have become important, and they are listed here. And then what are the various functions that these OTAs perform, and then how they are being updated, how the algorithms are being updated in the background, because it's all done through programming. And where is it that it is helping consumers and the operators is summarized on this particular table. Now, the last assessment criteria that we have in particular is to look at how this is benefiting, the consumers in particular. When we look at the integration of technology and digitization, which we get to see happening because of the internet and Internet of Things or technology coming into, this particular sector, which is tourism and hospitality management. So here we need to talk about some of the usages which consumers are able to get because of the integration of technology in any such aspect of tourism activity, whether it's tour operators, whether it's airline industry, hotels, event management company, it is transportation, it is anything that is related to this sector. What we need to do is talk about what are the benefits the consumers are getting because of the integration of internet and digitization within this sector. Now, one of the things that we will look at as a benefit is that you are able to research everything online nowadays. So before even going to a place, you are able to go onto the website of that company, hotel, location, and basically see what you're going to be getting. So that is the first most important benefit which comes to your mind, that what is the advantage of me being able to log on to the website and seeing, even before you travel, you can see all these things. You can see ratings, reviews, how customers are reacting, and saying, and what are they saying about that location. The second benefit is you can do online bookings. That means from the comforts of your room using the internet, you can actually do bookings of anything that you're looking at using as a service when you're traveling. And that is the second benefit. The third is that you are able to share some of these experiences online with your friends, family, by posting them through various social media channels. And the other use of social media channels is to also make you aware and give you information related to benefits, advantages, disadvantages of using that particular site or that service, because you're able to read reviews, you're able to see ratings, and all that can influence how you make decisions in order to book that particular service or that location. Other advantage that I can obviously think of is price comparisons. I can compare things whether it's 2 flights, 2 hotels, 2 destinations, 2 types of activities, the cheapest operator, the basis, the facilities it gives, the services it provides, is it value for money? All that can be done by looking and doing a price comparison. There was a very good site which was started a couple of years back called pricerunner.com. I don't know whether that is still there or not, but this particular website was a site created by an entrepreneur in the UK, and it's still there, and it allows you to compare it basically looks at the most trending products that you would want to buy in the market, and it can cover products from any industry, and it allows you to compare the prices of those products and where are the cheapest prices available. And this site became quite popular in I would say, the early 2010s, and it's still a site which is going and now acquired, I think, as a business by Klarna, which is a finance, related company providing you to be able to buy, things on finance at a very low cost online when you buy products between, say, £1 to about, say, £100,000. So in such cases, you would generally see that this particular site allows you to do comparisons. Now, the availability of mobile apps. So, for example, if I check into Marriott, there's an app available. I can look at loyalty points. I can redeem those points. I can see the hotel services it provides, get in touch with the staff, initiate a chat. All these are applications which mobile phones and mobile applications are allowing me to do. Check in electronically, check out electronically, digital boarding passes, getting your receipts and your bills and everything online using the app is again one of the features which consumers are enjoying benefits of when we look at technology. Personalization, quite easy to explain. You can actually look at, personalizing your experience in terms of wherever you're going, what activities you're going to do. You can look at, prices that you pay and what you're willing to pay, and all that would allow you to personalize your experience as far as, stay in a hotel is concerned or bookings with a particular tour operator is concerned. Now, sometimes I get these emails because I'm subscribed to Marriott and I'm a member with Marriott. They will send me some packages or details of, weekend getaway or a cheaper holiday for 3 days if you book now, and bases your interest in terms of adventure tourism or sea sports. These are the destinations which are coming up, and you could be the first to book and, get the advantages of prices. Those bits of things typically you would see, are happening through the use of technology. And when we look at how that is the consumer benefit, now when we look at how the operators or people who are working within this sector as businesses benefiting, we again use some of the points like the use of internet, communication is becoming easier, relationship management through the CRM system or customer relationship management system is becoming easier, managing of loyalty programs, targeted promotions, personalized emails is becoming easier with the use of CRM systems like Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoho. A lot of these companies use these systems to maintain and promote and market their products and services. The use of online distribution channels, which is connected, connectivity across various different properties, whether it's hotels, airlines, travel operators, or transport companies, things like that, making it easier to optimize revenue and obviously minimize wherever duplication of work is required to be done. Now, data analytics, customer services and support, and obviously influencer marketing in certain places, which is now being used. If you look at some of the tourism packages which, Sweden promotes. Sweden is known for adventure tourism. So when I look at influencer marketing, they create these pods, which are tourism pods created secluded in mountains or hanging from the rooftops, of mountains, and where you could get an experience which is primarily an experience when you go out and have a holiday. These kind of activities, which, certain, say, for example, destinations are trying to promote, are activities which would primarily involve what is called influencer marketing. So this is an example of, in America, wherein if you want to go in and live in the wilderness in obviously in places which is alone, secluded from, civilization, then there are these kind of, in tourism activities which are being brought across, in terms of, um, by various operators. And in order to promote these, what you're going to see is that um, there would be influencers which will be used to market these kind of tourism activities. So this is one example of a pod which tourism activity in Sweden is created, which is a tree house wherein it's a glass tree house. You are able to be above the trees. You can obviously see and be in an environment and surrounding which will allow you to interact with the nature, and everything at this pod would be provided to you in a way wherein it is going to take you away from the civilization, or you are basically looking at experiencing nature. Now when you look at these kind of tourisms which are in cabins, tree houses, or rural tourism or desert tourism, here these are concepts which the industry is trying to build awareness about. And but what it needs to do is use technology to be able to write about it, blog about it, use influencers to be able to create these activities, and these kind of new or seed, I would say, newer kind of activities which tourists can look into, and there will be early adopters who will go into it. And that is where you will see these kind of things coming through as far as content marketing or influencer marketing is concerned, because there are agencies which are essentially looking at, creating these kind of destinations or marketing opportunities, and experimenting with them to see if there's an appetite with consumers to be able to, look at these kind of activities for the purposes of leisure or, tourism. And they would be looking at businesses, sectors, hotels, and other operators which are part and parcel of this industry would be looking at these as opportunities to develop revenues in the future. And that would be looking at content marketing and obviously influencer marketing. So this table summarizes some part of it to cover this assessment criteria, and gives you a perspective of what are the benefits of technology to consumers and what are the benefits of integration of technology for businesses within this sector. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Any questions on today's session? So this brings us to the end of our discussion for Learning Outcome 2 as well. Any questions on this so far?
No, nothing.
Good stuff. So I'll upload the copy of this presentation and obviously the recording shortly after the session, and then we'll catch up tomorrow to cover Learning Outcome 3.
Okay, perfect.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.